Thank you. Welcome to Softcat event, Cloud Uncovered. My name's Dean Gardner, Field CTO at Softcat. And I can see the first question you're all asking is, why is he wearing a tie? Yeah. So about 2 months ago, they asked me to present this Cloud Uncovered event. And of course, I said yes. I said on one condition. The condition was that I would wear the same smart outfit that I wore for all the virtual events for the last 2 years. Hence, and they agreed. So, and I've been hiding away back there, ready to go. So I'm much more comfortable than most of you today. So brilliant. Thanks for me. This amazing location, Glaciers Hall, thank you for coming. Really do appreciate you making the effort. I don't know about you, but there's been hundreds and hundreds of events appear on LinkedIn. If you're all on LinkedIn, it's incredible when you see them. So we really do take the joy that you've made the effort to come to our event today. A bit of housekeeping. If you're not joined the Wi-Fi, I'm sure you have. Go on Wi-Fi, and obviously you've got Glaciers Hall Wi-Fi, and it's a nice secure password, event 123. Yeah, join that if you can. We're talking about security after this, so hopefully we can reset that password. But we really do appreciate you being here. So it's safe to say that we want you to take advantage of hospitality, stick around for the day. We've got breakout sessions. We'll get a vendor community here in our partner community, so please reach out to them. They're upstairs, and enjoy the lunch. And later on, we've obviously got some bits and pieces that we can go through in terms of drinks and canopies, etc. If you stick around for the day, we're hoping you do that. So it's worth saying that, at the start of lockdown 2 years ago, we basically, like everybody, it was obviously a really shocking time for everybody. And in that period, I don't know about you, but I did take the positive out of it, that I could spend more time with my wife and my kids, and that was short-lived. And then basically, we went through, and I also figured that maybe as things start unlocking, probably like most of you, you could, because of the balance of being able to work from home, etc., we might take advantage of being able to do a few things. But obviously, we realized we were on lockdown, and actually you couldn't do anything, and even walking outside the house, you get fined, which was fascinating, except if you're in number 10. And that was fine, absolutely fine. Anybody from central government are in a different bubble, we like you. Anybody from number 10, the bar is way, way later today. So yes, you get to stick around. So basically, virtual events. I enjoy virtual events. We learned a lot from virtual events. And we think they were fascinating. We had to think about new ways of reaching customers. We had to think about new ways of getting all of you joining us to, kind of understand what we were doing as a business and how we were developing our business. And we don't want that to stop, even though we do really appreciate you all being here. And virtual events, so we had to get our creative minds going. We had to think about how we could do things differently. And certainly if you think about the evolution and the technical evolution with virtual events now, we're talking over the next 18 months, the metaverse is coming, and we've got augmented reality meetings where pressure pad, gloves where you can shake hands and have these avatars that are all going to be working for you or with you. So you can have these virtual events. So we don't always have to be in a physical room. I mean, we love you being here to say, but virtual events. And the other thing with virtual events I really, truly enjoyed was cheese and wine. I mean, I've never truly had as many hampers delivered on a weekly basis, to the point where I was almost considering becoming a sommelier or someone who could sell hampers on eBay. That was kind of my thought. And so I made some good money there. Where Softcat, we resell, we take advantage of all opportunity. So basically, another thing was gourmet burgers. Who made a gourmet burger in lockdown? I made loads of those. There he goes, hands up back there. A bit of a gourmet burger, we like those. So, when we get those creative minds flowing, crossing the streams of blue cheese on a burger with a Merlot, that was joy. And it's a gift that keeps on giving. Hence why I'm wearing shorts today. So, I tried the suit on last night. That was bad planning on my part. But we really do welcome you all being here, and we thank you for joining us. And there's no gourmet burgers as far as I'm aware. But, if there are, then enjoy those. The other thing, pre-pandemic, I might add, is that, I don't know about you, I'm going to look around, the Midnight Gourmet Express Burger from Burger King. From doing these events. Sometimes we ended up staying a bit too late and getting the train home at midnight, and then the Burger King stepped in. I'm not sure if a gourmet burger is available there, or blue cheese burger, certainly at Burger King. If it was, I'm not sure if I would eat it. Although I might. We'll see. We'll give it a go. And the other thing is that stopping the 12 stops from home, train to Northampton, ending up in Leicester. That was difficult to claim back on expenses. I can see a few of you nodding on that one, actually. So yeah, we started early today, so you've got some runway. But anyway, on with the show. We're really pleased that everybody's here today, and Cloud Uncovered is live. It's in person. At least that's what they told me backstage, because I've just sank 4 Merlots and a big packet of blue cheese. The old habits are hard to kill. But why are we here? Let's go for it. We want to get under the hood of why cloud is important to you. We want to understand your industries. We want to understand why you're using cloud. And we want to highlight what you should be considering when you're using cloud. We have the breakout sessions. We have loads of different areas that we think you can get some value on. But we want to hear from you. This event is for you. It's an event we want to hear back from your opinions, your perspectives. There's Slidos that Matt will talk about in a minute. There's some questions that you can answer, and there's some open text where we can listen and want to hear back from your perspectives in terms of what you're doing. We're talking about FinOps, we're talking about cloud operations, governance, security, all these important parts. We're talking about hybrid and multi-cloud and how you can operate more effectively in that world. So basically, it's a day for you. It's a day with breakout sessions. It's a day for vendors and partners. They're amazing. I have to say that they're paying. And we want to hear from you. We want you to interact with us. There's plenty of people here who can support you, and me included. Just get me early, because if you get me late, it could be trouble. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our head of cloud, and that's Matt Larder, and he's going to give you an overview of the agenda.
Thanks, Dean, and welcome, everyone. It's interesting you touched on Elton John, I think, in the pre-run.
Sorry, yeah.
Absolutely ruined my next joke.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that I recently heard on the radio that a cast member of this season's Love Island thought that Elton John was two people, Elton and John, like Ant and Dec. And you were comparing us to Ant and Dec, so that's where the joke came from. But enough of that. I don't want to bias any of you with my TV or radio habits. And as Dean mentioned, we've got a pretty packed agenda today with a bunch of kickoff sessions starting right after this. So we thought we'd just give you a quick rundown of what some of those are and then go from there. So the first one we've got at the top left there, or middle left, I should say, is security at the scale of cloud. As many of us are aware, the diversification of platforms outside the data center has introduced many different types of emerging security threats. And we think it's important to constantly think about the patterns that you should be employing to make sure that security keeps pace with delivery ultimately. After that, we're going to look into, in a similar vein, hybrid cloud operations. And again, as I said, similarly, really looking at that diversification of platforms and all the different tools that you might be expected to be employing to make sure that you've got good oversight, governance, security, reliability, cost of all those different platforms. But we think that could become quite overwhelming in terms of all those different tools and process. So again, having a look at what some of those key things are that we think you should be paying attention to. Then I think we've got lunch after that, which is, I think, back out here and upstairs. Nice buffet style that we've put on, so hopefully we can all get a chance to enjoy that. And then coming back in after that, getting into a topic that's quite close to my own heart and a breakout around cloud governance and cost control. And I say that because any of you that know me know that I'm a bit of a broken record when it comes to stats like 32% of cloud spend being wasted, according to recent research by Flexera in their State of Cloud report. And we've got some of our team here today that provide services to organizations like NHS Digital to talk about the work we're doing with them to try and combat that ever-increasing cloud spend and how we can make sure that we're getting the best value for money from those different platforms. Following on from there, we've got a session which feels like a bunch of buzzwords around digital marketplace, but the reality is there's huge financial upside there to be had if you look at your approach to modernizing software procurement. 3 words there that I don't necessarily think we'll all agree is that's sexy in terms of things that we should be looking at when it comes to cloud. But as I said, some huge gains to be had there, and we're really fortunate to be joined today by Darren Sharp, one of the industry's leading experts in marketplace. And then similarly, after that, we're really fortunate to be joined by an organization which is Calibrate, an existing customer of Softcat, who provide location and data intelligence services that are going to talk through their journey to being in cloud and some of the steps they've been through, and specifically some of the areas they've looked to modernize their process and their systems. Capping the day off, we've got a session with Laura Foster from Tech UK, amazing person that can provide us insight into what's happening in the UK market as a bit of an independent advisor. We at Softcat like to think we're also independent advisors, but we thought it'd be nice to bring along someone else that sits in that independent layer that can provide some insight. And we really encourage everyone to get all your questions down, as Dean mentioned, on Slido, so we can kind of run through those with Laura at the end of the day. And that kind of brings me on to a bit more housekeeping, as Dean mentioned, which is the use of Slido. On the back of all your badges, there's a barcode. If you scan that, you can open up the Slido app, or you can take a picture and scan the barcode that you've got here now. Once you've logged into Slido using the code that's on there, you can then join a room and drop your question into there, and we'll be aggregating all the questions throughout the day and using those for the panel session at the end. Or feel free to save them up and grab one of us as you see us through the day to run through them.
You can scan if you want. It's up to you. From their screen.
So we touched on a bit there and some of the trends that we're seeing, and we thought it would be good to kind of spend a few minutes really looking at what it is that Softcat's seeing, both in the market and by working with existing customers, both in terms of what they're being challenged with and also what they are asking to work with us on or asking to partner with us on. So we thought we'd share a bit of that insight with you. So first up, Dean, I think it's fair to say that we're seeing a big increase in data-related projects initiatives.
Yeah, so as you can see on the screen, the increase in data growth over the last few years, certainly up to 2020, approximately 64.2 zettabytes, huge amounts, but it's projected to grow to 180 zettabytes over the next few years. So a lot of customers we talk to, data-related projects, where they're going in terms of what they're doing with their data, structured, unstructured, all areas of interest, almost more conversations around data than we are specifically about public cloud or cloud. How can I do more with that? So, and it's really kind of borne out the fact that applications, as you can see there, over the last couple of years, so many more applications are being created, which is creating more data. So many more platforms are being used where data is growing. And obviously the use of clouds are expanding, and to the point where obviously remote workers, as we all know, obviously the way I'm dressed, we're all working from home more, and obviously that's increased, which is all driving this kind of data fuel, if you will. So, questions we are asking customers regularly: what have you doing with your structured and unstructured data? How are you assessing that? Really getting under the hood of what's in your data, essentially, estate, and trying to put some sense to that. It's interesting that a lot of data that's collected, most of it actually gets thrown away. So it's really sifting through and getting the value of your data and insights out of your data is where people want to get to. It's not an easy thing to do, but certainly something we're really trying to help customers. So be interesting to get some perspectives from this audience in terms of what you're doing around data.
Thanks, Dean. I think we'll touch on some more of that later as well. The next one is really around supply chain and specifically challenges that we're facing in that space with regards to OEMs, chips, etc., that we're struggling to get. And I think traditionally we would have all said that that was something that would be constrained to the technology industry specifically, again, vendors, OEMs. But I think what we've seen through COVID, through lockdowns, is that actually that's impacting lots of different areas of the industry, both IT and others, in terms of all organisations that are providing any form of digital connective service. So again, Dean, I think some insights you've got in this space.
Yeah, so Accenture carried out a study this year that basically highlights, and this was to over 1,000 cloud supply chain execs, and just take some note of what's on the screen there. Basically, the increase of cloud usage to support cloud their supply chains is huge, and basically the idea is that you go to the right hand area there, it increases demand for forecast accuracy, it reduces the operational costs of being able to manage the supply chain, and ultimately they've got some stats that really do reflect that increases growth and profitability. So all of these stats are valid, and obviously they're from customers who are looking after supply chain, and ultimately it just means that the use of public cloud specifically is really driving and fueling some of that supply chain improvement.
Thanks, Dean. I think you also touched on another interesting point there, which is around sustainability. I think specifically if you look at the work that the likes of the public cloud providers are doing, some of which are here today, around aspects such as extending the usable life of hardware within their platforms from, say, 3 to 4 to 5 years. And I think ultimately that will have a big knock-on impact to the rest of organisations that are consuming, for example, on-prem hardware and services still. But that also then touches on the wider aspect of sustainability, which hopefully we all agree now has a top objective at most businesses in terms of committing to reducing emissions on their road to kind of becoming net zero. I think it's also important to call back out that those providers, Microsoft, AWS, have got commitments on their roads to net zero, most of which have all been brought forward in recent months and or in the last 12 months to bring their deadlines forward from, say, 2035 to 2030. But it's also worth noting that Softcat also has a commitment in that space to become net neutral or reduce all of our emissions to net zero by 2040. But along that journey, we're making small incremental changes, for example, recent announcements to support all of our employees with an electric vehicle scheme, again, as a part of driving down the emissions of all of our company.
And the number one priority, I forgot to click the slide, Matt.
I thought it was my go again.
If you want to take a picture, quickly, it's coming up again. There you go. Forgot my job. That's my only job. Dress up and click a button. Can't do that. But anyway, there's some stats that you just read through. It goes right on the night. Security, number one priority for many of our customers. Ultimately, you can see on the screen there, ransomware attacks, it's an obvious one, 150% increase between April 2020 and 21, and that's just increased even more. These stats are from Gardner. if you believe what Gardner say. But fundamentally, they are good stats to use. And actually, we're just seeing it, that attack landscape is spreading and it's expanding, and it's about meeting and mitigating against those threats. So really, I don't really need to highlight anymore. Security is a huge issue. The other thing I will touch upon, though, is that 30% of security workers are women, and so diversity in that particular area is really important. And an increase in skills gap essentially is a focus for many, but just getting more skills, upskilled, and different people who work in that industry, really expanding out that training and education is so important, which brings us on to the next slide, which is ultimately just skills themselves, being able to educate and train people.
Thanks, Dean. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we'd all agree that cloud skills specifically, but also more so recently, data-related skills, as well as we touched on before, are real unicorns in the market right now, have been for the last few years, and we don't expect that to slow down or change at any point over the next few years either. I think the challenge that we've seen is that traditionally many organizations, or many individuals, I should say, have used salary as a primary metric for when they're looking to move employer, for example. I think in the last 12, 24, 36 months, we've seen shifts in that space where employees are now looking at cultural aspects that their employer embodies, so environmental, social, governance aspects that the employer is working on, back to the point around sustainability and what the employer, again, embodies for their organization. But I think we need to make sure that we don't slip back into that rut of falling purely back to salary, especially in times like today where inflation's only increasing, cost of living is going up, and ultimately, as an individual, the only mechanism you've got to close that gap is by looking at salary and the expectations you can get from your working environments. And as such, I think it's important to think about the skills we want to bring into our organizations to try and close that gap, how we do that. And Softcat have amazing programs around talent acquisition from schools, colleges, apprenticeships, tech starters, women in the workplace. Those are great areas such as those things to make sure that we're bringing in new talent, not just relying back to having deep pockets to attract employees from the competition.
And we thought we'd just highlight some industry announcements over the last sort of 6 months. We're seeing acquisitions, we're seeing it everywhere. VMware recently being acquired by Broadcom for around 61 billion. We've seen Citrix being acquired earlier this year by an investment company. Ultimately, this is happening. Big companies now being acquired, this kind of consolidation in that market. But we're also seeing some of the big, large companies, Microsoft, AWS, Google, acquiring smaller startups that focus in niche areas that do particular pieces of security, as an example. So this kind of acquisition and this consolidation, so understanding that market, and certainly we really do try and stay on top of that, is so important. So if you've got any questions around any of those acquisitions or any of the products or services where you're not sure if you've bought something, you're not sure what's happening with it, then obviously that's why we're here. We can support you with that. But we're on top of most of these things. But it is happening, acquiring organizations from most of the vendors we work with. It's happening all over the place. And we can give you some information on that if you need to. But there's some stats on the screen there that we called out from essentially quite a big list, actually, when we researched it.
Is it me or you?
Well, I don't know. What do you reckon, Anne?
I'll give it a go, Dick.
Yeah.
So as we said, really want to hear from you all today in terms of what you're seeing, whether the things that we're talking about here and through the course of the day resonate with you. As we touched on before, the mechanism for doing that obviously is to come and grab one of us, but also if you can use the Slido app, raise any questions or comments you've got in that, and we can bring those out towards the end of the session. So again, anything you get through the day or any kind of questions you get from this session, please feel free to drop them into Slido, and we'll come back to them later on as well. And then we thought we'd kind of close out by, I guess, ultimately lots of you today might be existing Softcat customers or be considering working with Softcat, and we thought it would be important to give you a bit of an update as to what Softcat is doing, a mini business update, if you will, alongside some of the trends we touched on there. So the first one I think we'd like to go touch on is around the expansion of our advisory services and the team that Dean sits in and represents, and the work that we're doing with customers in that space.
Yeah, so we recognize, Softcat is a reseller. If you want to buy tech, you can come to us and we can resell tech. We also recognize that organizations, the landscape's getting complex, the multi-platform, multi-cloud landscape, and we'll talk a bit about that later today, but it is getting complex. And certainly what we recognize is that we've got to invest ourselves in more people that can understand your business, your industries, and give you better advice or improve that advice. If you don't know the answers, you can come and ask us. And so our advisory practice is built on people, platforms, and the commercials. And we focus on different areas, but it's mostly around IT investment solutions. We've got multinational support. We have global support now. We have offices all around the world. Procurement, partnership, and contractual models. We can do all of that with you. And obviously, we've got some legal support as well. So we do work with organizations on frameworks and legal and things like that. And also from a consultative perspective, technical design governance, the capability, capacity, and maturity assessment services that we've got now really are accelerating and maturing themselves. The target operating model service design, we're seeing a lot more organizations having to build target operating models with the complexity that's coming. We help organizations do that. Digital strategy and investment planning, market and commercial modeling. These are all services that we do offer today for our advisory function. The Xoio team is part of that, but also the wider business we now have really do provide advisory services to our customers. So it's a really big area of investment for us over the next few years, and we see that as an opportunity to engage more with you as a business.
Thanks, Dean. Yeah, I think interesting point you touched on there, things like target operating model. I think if you go back 15 years, those are things that we didn't have to look at because all IT was typically built, looked after, operated in the same way. The emergence of cloud over the last 15 years thereafter, up to now, I think really challenges some of the ways in which we culturally are structured as organizations, and that's hence why those things are important for us to be looking at. And as Dean said, all things that we're supporting existing customers with today. The next one, Dean touched on a bit as well, was really the investment Softcat's made into a new customer portal. Probably none of you have seen this so far, but it's available at cmp.softcat.com. And ultimately, it's designed so that we can start aggregating insights, as Dean mentioned there, and data from the different cloud platforms that are available and provide our customers with intelligence that's tailored to the individuals within their organization. So, for example, pulling out security posture management, I say the words, posture management from the different cloud platforms and aggregating that into a single view in the platform, looking at monitoring information, cloud spend, all those interesting and great areas that you need to have a handle on to make sure that what you're doing is well governed and looked after, all available through the new customer portal that we're building. And then lastly, and again, a similar vein, is Xoio, which is a new Softcat cloud-based sustainability platform. It's a new investment by Softcat. It was launched on World Earth Day a couple of months ago now. We've already had about 100 customers sign up through the first 3 months alone. It's free to use, free to sign up, and it ultimately helps our customers with aggregating supply chain emissions data so they can effectively report on what their emissions position is and take that insight to identify areas in which they can drive down that emission and work to a position of becoming net zero at some point in the future. And then last but not least, as we kind of come to an end, towards the end of the keynote, is really one of the reasons why we wanted to get everyone here together today as well, is that originally our plan was to donate £10 per person joining. So we're aiming for about 150 people, so an equivalent of £1,500 to donate towards Little Lives. Little Lives is a great cause that helps children from children from underprivileged backgrounds who need access to technology to support things like keeping up with their peers in school or completing homework and schoolwork, and helps them with attaining that access to technology. I mentioned that was the original plan because we didn't quite get to 150 people here today. I haven't done the counting around the room. I think it might be quite close, but we'll still be donating the full amount because Little Lives is a great cause. As I said, that kind of rounds out the keynote. We've got a few minutes now, I think, before the next breakout in actually about 3 minutes. There's some refreshments outside, so I urge you guys to kind of all grab a quick drink, quick bite to eat, snack, and then I think it's head upstairs to the River Room for the Security at Scale of Cloud breakout. Once again, we thank you all for joining us here today. Massive thanks to all of the Softcat team for putting on this fantastic event, and I look forward to speaking to you across the day. Thank you.